Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. I am finally back with another historical romance vlog. It's been a while. I have been really slacking on my historical romance reads. But more specifically, this vlog is getting back to the Maiden Lane series because I did decide I wanted to finally read Elizabeth Hoyt this year. And so I decided I wanted to vlog the entire Maiden Lane series. I know everybody really loves this series, so I wanted to give it a go. I really loved the first two. I love the first one a lot more than the second one, but I still enjoy the second one. So I am back with another vlog, and I am probably just going to be doing another 2 books again because, you know, I tend to ramble on these vlogs, so we don't want to make them too long. So I'm going to be doing books 3 and 4. So let's go ahead and get started with this vlog. Okay, guys. So, you know, what else is new? I'm looking a little haggard here this morning. But what else is new with my vlogs? I'm makeup free. It's early in the morning. Well, not too early. It's about like 9. But I'm working from home today. So I didn't really feel like getting ready or anything. It's really nice when you get to work from home where I just get to like kind of roll out of bed, make my coffee, and go sit at my computer and work from home. It's nice. It's a nice little change. But anyways, I actually started the 3rd book last night, which is Scandalous Desires. And I was really excited for this one because this one was about a couple. It's a couple other characters that were featured in the first couple books. And I was very intrigued by them because I think it was even introduced in the first book and then continued into the second book. They're kind of like what's going on in their world type of thing. So that's one thing I really love that Elizabeth Hoyt does is she really sets up a lot of characters, side characters that you're intrigued by, and she's kind of like building on that, and each book, you know, continues that. And so, you know, you'll start to see characters and you know, okay, they're going to have a book. So, I mean, the thing is that I find all the characters really intriguing. She is such a phenomenal storyteller. I loved the first couple books. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll try to remember to put it up here if you want to watch the vlog for the first 2 books. I will eventually make a playlist where it's just going to be all Elizabeth Hoyt vlogs for this. So the Maiden Lane Elizabeth Hoyt vlog. So I'll eventually create that. Who knows when. But this is actually about the river pirate charming Mickey O'Connor, and we also have Silence Hollingbrooke. So Silence is the sister to Winter, who runs that child. I always forget what it's called, and I should have looked that up here, but it's like basically that home for like wayward children, whatever they call it. Her brother runs that with her sister. So the heroine from the first book. So Silence was a very interesting character because we get to kind of see what's going on in the previous 2 books because she's actually married. Her husband was, I think, a sailor or did that type of thing. And he ends up actually kind of taking the blame for this stolen goods. And he's going to probably like lose everything, be, you know, fired, who knows, criminal charges, stuff going on. He had nothing to do with it. And she knows that Mickey, who is this river pirate, I kind of don't know if I would fully call him a pirate because he's mostly on land. He honestly feels like a gang leader. But I guess he's just the river pirate of, you know, St. Giles. But he basically is this kind of really sexy Irish kind of guy. He's very suave. He's kind of like this gang leader, and he's very charming. That's why they call him Charming Mickey. And he actually stole these goods. So she ends up going to him and kind of like begging him to give them back or do whatever so like her husband doesn't get, you know, charged and lose everything. And for some reason, I don't know why, Maybe he was fascinated by her, or he wanted to prove that her husband didn't really love her. He basically agrees to do this, but she has to spend the night with him. And he's like, how, like, does your husband love you? Whatever, all that kind of stuff. And he'll still love you if you do this. And so she does spend the night with him, but nothing happens. He basically takes her to her bedroom and has her like sleep there, and he doesn't touch her or anything. And he basically kind of says it like, okay, well, we'll see, like, you know, if your husband will believe you and still love you after this. So she's actually forced to kind of like head home with disheveled looking like she just had slept with him or stuff gone on. And no one believes her that nothing happened. And her husband definitely didn't believe her, and it ended up bringing a lot of conflict. He ends up going away on ship again, and he is lost at sea. He ends up dying. And so she really lost everything. Her, you know, her, I can't think. It's too early. Her reputation is in like tatters. And so she's really lost a lot. She lost her husband, her reputation, everything. And she ends up going to stay at the home and help like Winter and stuff. And a baby was left with her. Mary Darling was abandoned. And so she ends up really forming a bond with this baby. And it becomes basically like her baby. And she's been taking care of it. And in the previous book, she gets hinted that this baby is actually Mickey's. And she thinks he left it for her because he was sending like secret like gifts for her and everything. Well, in the opening of this book, sorry, this is all the even set up before this book starts. I promise I won't go into every detail on this blog and make this super long. I promise. But the beginning of this book, somebody took Mary Darling, her little precious baby. And so she gets a note, and basically Mickey says, I have something of your, you know, that you want, or whatever, of yours. And so she knows he took the baby. So she goes to basically beg for the baby back. And Mickey has taken this baby. He doesn't really care about this baby, but he has taken him because his big enemy has found out about it, he thinks, and could go after the baby. The other big thing is he's been planning this for a while, like he said, like over a year or something, to try and get her in his clutches. And he's worried that her safety could be in danger as well, because this enemy has like killed like women he's slept with. If he knew he cared about this heroine, he would definitely do something to her. And this villain actually carries over from the previous book. He was the one that was kind of going after that hero and his distillery and everything like that. So this is like continuing in this villain. So I don't know if he'll take care of in this book or if he's going to be an ongoing villain. We'll see. But basically, Mickey says, you can't take her with you. She needs to stay here where she'll be safe. And you can stay here with us. And so she's willing to do whatever. She has a mother's love for this child that she agrees to this, even though it's going to ruin her reputation even more. But if people found out about it, it could ruin that home for the children. So she was kind of like, don't tell Winter. Winter was out of town. And she is basically moving in with Mickey. And they just have this kind of chemistry. He's very drawn to her. He's been like obsessed with her for like ever since he met her that one time. And so she's like in a bad situation. And she's getting to know some of his people. He has this like kind of henchman side guy that Harry, I think it was, that I loved. He was like a standout side character in this because he's this big brute, but he's like really sensitive and really like protective over her. And he's got this huge dog that the dog like loves Mickey for some reason, and Mickey does not care about it and would like sleep in his bed and stuff. And she's trying to like, she knows he has her over a barrel, you know, she knows he has one over her. And so she kind of does this thing where she refuses to dine with him and all of his people. And he basically says, then you won't eat. And like all of his people are sneaking her food and all this kind of stuff. And so it was her way of just kind of making a stand, but you know, doesn't want to put them in danger and all that kind of stuff. So the side plot of this too is he's trying to take down his enemy, which I'm trying to remember his name. Let me see if I can get it, because I am annotating this as I've been annotating all of them. So, Okay, I think I found it. Okay, yeah. So Charlie Grady, better known as the Vicar of Whitechapel, is his enemy. And so he is going after him. And this guy's coming after him as well. And he knows that that woman moved into his place. So now he knows even more, like he has spies. And he knows even more how much this woman must mean to him if he moved her in with him. So there's a lot of sexual tension. There's a scene that like he had gone to go, somebody didn't pay their tithe, and so he was gonna like steal stuff off their ship, and it was kind of like a trap almost, where his enemy, the whatever vicar, was waiting for him with his men. A couple of his men died, and so you get to see some sensitive parts to him, because one of his guys is just like really ambitious and like doesn't really care. But he was like fighting to be able to give that guy's wife like money and take care of her till she finds a new husband. And so you do see a softer side to Mickey. There's hints that like, I think this is like more of a personal vendetta. Like I think this guy the vicar might have been involved with his mom, and that's why he's like really going after him. So, yeah, so they have an interesting interaction, like when he's bathing, because he ends up moving her closer to his room because he's worried, because actually the ghost of St. Giles has an altercation with him on the streets, and this is after Winter finds out that his sister is there and is furious, and basically the ghost of St. Giles shows up to let him know, I'm keeping an eye on you. And so again, so many things are just leading me to believe that Winter is the ghost of St. Giles, because why would that Ghost of St. Giles care? You know, so I know Winter is going to be the Ghost of St. Giles, which I'm excited for. We meet a new character. I think her name was Isabel, and she has an interaction with Winter. So I'm wondering if she's going to be in the next book, because the next book I think is going to be Winter's book. I'm not positive though, but because I don't want to like clue myself into things yet. Okay, so anyways, I am loving this. I love their connection. I love his bad boy. Like, this guy's a bad boy, but like you can tell he's like obsessed with Silence. And I'm really loving how she's willing to do anything for this baby. She loves this baby, and she's just devoted to taking care of her and having her be with her. So I'll just leave that there. I've already been talking for like over 10 minutes. But I am loving it. I'm already hooked. I'm like about 30% through. So I will check back in with you guys once I get a little bit further in the book and see what's been happening. Hey guys, so I am just here with a quick check-in. I'm actually just taking a break. I was able to read a little bit on my lunch, so I'm a little over like 60% through the book, and I'm really loving it. I'm loving Mickey. He is just so swoony. Like, I'm actually listening to this on audiobook, reading it physically, and annotating it. That's what I've been kind of doing with all of them, and I'm just really loving it. The narrator for these is so good. Like, she does such a good accent for like Mickey in this, and her male voice is like really good. So I love this narrator. I forgot who it was, so hopefully I'll remember. But anyways, not a ton is happening. It's a very like it doesn't have a lot of other side plots going on except for his enemy coming after him. But there's like really beautiful moments between Mickey and Silence, and I'm just swooning over this guy because he is the typical like bad boy pirate bad guy, but he is so gone for Silence. And he like has actually showed some of his tender moments. He had not had any interest in this baby really. But all of a sudden, this baby got really sick, had a fever, and Silence was like freaking out. So he got the doctor for the baby, and then like she had been taking care of him, nursing him, taking care of him, the daughter for a while. So she was like passed out, tired. And he basically goes in and like picks up the baby and is trying to soothe her and singing her like lullabies. And, Silence is seeing these sides to him that aren't just like all bad guy, and he's just really into her, and I'm loving him. So They had some really good intimate scenes of like getting to know each other. He's like opened up to her about his childhood growing up like on the streets. His mother basically fell for a really bad man, which is probably our bad guy. And he had like used her and like even pimped her out at one point and all this stuff. And so he really did not have a good childhood, and Silence just feels so much for him and is like, you deserved a better mother, mother that would fight for you and do anything for you. And he just like really is moved by that. So they have this really sweet, tender kiss, and it's like when they're holding the babies like between them, so it's like a more tender, soft, like yearning type of kiss. And so yeah, and then at one point he's like, I'm so sick of you wearing these, like still wearing black. He's pretty tough on her. He's like, because she always tells the story about how she's so in love with her husband, but she's like, do I just say that because I thought I loved him? Did I really love him? Did we have a good relationship? Because her husband didn't believe her and then like left her and died. And he's like, you may say things about me, but at least I'm alive. At least I'm living. Like, I'm not like already dead. Like, you're living like you're dead. And he wants her to wear color, and he ends up giving her like this whole like trunk of beautiful dresses and wants to take her out. And so he takes her out, has her wear a mask so her identity is protected being out with him, and they end up going to an opera, and they just like, it's very like the tension and chemistry between them is on point. Elizabeth Hoyt is so good at building that intimacy and connection between the characters that like just draws you in, and I'm just loving it. Like, I'm loving it. They end up like sharing like when they get home, their place was being attacked. His enemy had set people after him, and the maid, there's this one maid, this side character, she was so sweet. One of his younger guys that's like more ambitious, it's like his girlfriend. She ends up being brutally murdered because the place was being attacked. So they're like worried the baby got taken, and the baby and the big dog was protecting the baby under the bed, and it was just so cute. But then they see the body of like the maid, and her whole face is gone. And it's because I can't remember what it was called, but it's almost like acid. It was something used for like distilleries and stuff. It was poured on her face, and she died. And he tells her, oh, that's because of me, because I did that to a man, and because I wanted to kill him, and it was just happened to be there, and I threw it on his face, and that's the vicar. And because the vicar's whole like side of his face is like melted, gross, no eye, like he's like disgusting. So now they end up sharing like this another kiss and everything, and then Winter and his brothers come in to rescue her from him, and she doesn't want to go with him. She really wants to stay true to Mickey, but Mickey's like, you need to go because I can't keep you safe here, obviously. Like, they attacked our palace, which that's what he calls his place. And so he's like, you need to go with them to be safe and protected. And then they share like, but he's like, remember me, and he like kisses her deeply, and it's just super hot. Like, I am loving Mickey. I think he's amazing. So I gotta get back to work, but I am loving this book, if you can't tell. All right, I'll check back in with you guys once I finish it. Hey guys, so I am back with my final check-in for Scandalous Desires. I did the stopping point last night at 30% because it was at nighttime and didn't feel like doing a check-in, and I want to stick with checking in on my vlogs this time. Because sometimes I'm not the best. But I managed to finish the rest of it today, and it was fantastic. I loved Mickey. I loved Silence. Their characters were amazing. So I think where I kind of left off is where he decided to have her go off with Winter, be with her brother, because it wasn't good protection there. But he basically decides he's going after his girls, which he does consider the baby his little girl now. He does want to be a part of this baby's life. And so he actually finds her where she was kind of with, I think, Temperance. Is that the female heroine from the first book? And because she was staying at Lord Care's and Temperance's place. And he goes there and basically tells her, come with me. And she does, because she really wants to be with him. She was missing him. And so they go off to this other hidden home that he has where people don't know him there as, the pirate, like a pirate or anything. He's just like a shipbuilder, which he actually can, I guess. And so he has this home that's he can just be a regular guy at. And so he takes her there, and they end up sleeping together. And he was like, I just want you to know, like, I want to make sure you want this because I've never wanted anything more. And if we continue, like, I'm not going to be able to stop. So this is your chance. And she's like, I want this. And the whole time he's like checking in with her, like, are you okay? I'm not scaring you, Aura, am I? And she's like, trust me, you're scaring me in like all the good ways. So Elizabeth Hoyt writes amazing sex scenes. Like the whole book, it's like there's the sexual tension and buildup between them. You really feel that they've had such intimate conversations that you really feel like they are in love with each other by this point and are connected on another level. And so I really love that. And she actually ends up crying after the sex because she was like, and he's upset, like, oh, is she regretting this? Because I'm not regretting anything. I'm a pirate. I go after what I want. And she was like, sorry, I lost my thing that holds my camera, so I'm having issues here. Sorry, it's all bouncy. But she was like, no, like, I realized I'm a liar, that I've been thinking that I loved my husband and we had this special marriage, but really it was like a young girl's fantasy of what she wanted her marriage to be. And then, being with him is like at a whole different level. And she realizes they didn't really have that kind of relationship. And, because she already knows, like, she's fallen in love with Mickey. Or Michael. She always calls him his full name, Michael. And so they're intimate and everything, and they are ready to be together. But the problem is that he has to take care of the vicar. She's not safe. So her and the baby are supposed to kind of stay there in hiding. And then also he's not willing to kind of give up being a pirate. And she wants him to give that up. She's like, you have so much money. You have more money than you've ever needed. What you did really hurt me and my husband. You hurt a lot of people. Like, I can't just sit by and like have you do that and then like not be your wife. Am I just like, And so they get like, he gets frustrated. Like, that's who I am. That's all I have. That's all I know. And she, they make love one more time, and then he's going to go and come back later. And she basically decides to leave him because she doesn't want to be with him if he's going to be doing that kind of thing. She quickly regrets this. He ends up sending a bunch of like his guards, like his men, to guard her, even though she left him, because he's so in love with her. And he's sitting there like on his throne in his room and realizing like he has all the riches, but she's really all he wants, her and his daughter. And then he gets a note from the vicar, and the vicar basically is like kind of setting him up to come to a trap, pretending like he has silence in his baby. And so he shows up, and the vicar was actually started working with these new investigators and like policemen, and kind of sets him up to basically get arrested for being a pirate, which he'll be hanged because that's like what they did to pirates. And so he's kind of setting up an escape plan, and she's like, I can't leave with him there. So she actually goes and visits him, and he like asks her to marry him. He's like, you're everything to me. This isn't what I want for you. He was also freaking out, like, what if he had gotten her pregnant and now she wasn't going to have him? And what if her family kicked her out because she got pregnant by, being unmarried? And so, yeah. So there's that. So they end up getting married like in the jail. And then like she ends up getting captured during the time when he's going to try and do his escape attempt. And he tells his men, like, forget my escape attempt, get the men and go rescue her, get to Winter, tell her brother. And so he's like on the news getting hanged. He's like about to die. And the ghost of St. Giles gets him free. and he's able to draw the attention towards the ghost of St. Giles so that like he can get away, and he ends up going to rescue her. And his father, oh, and I don't mention, but this guy, his enemy is his father, which I kind of figured when he kept not wanting to bring up him, like his father. And so his father was like going to rape her and everything, and he had given her a knife to protect herself with before he left that last night they were together. And so she ends up killing the vicar. So, and now he's willing to give up being a pirate and be the regular, Michael Rivers. And they can live and be a family and have a regular life. And so that's basically the end. And then at the very end, we have the epilogue. And I don't know if I've mentioned in this, but I know I've annotated it a bunch, and I mentioned it in my previous vlog, but I think the Ghost of St. Giles is Winter. And so we find out for sure in the epilogue, because the Ghost of St. Giles was like running for his life after the rescue attempt. And he's like, oh, they knew, like, Winter, blah, 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 is the Ghost of St. Giles. And then he like passes out. So I was like, yes, I knew it. It's probably obvious to everybody, but I was happy. I was right, because I love Winter. So anyways, I freaking love this book. Elizabeth Hoyt's attention to like the side characters. She builds up side characters throughout each book that made this more powerful, because we had heard about and been teased about these two in the last two books. So I think it just adds a lot more depth and so much more to their story and their love story and everything. So I loved it. Like, I loved Mickey or Michael. I loved Silence, and so I just had such a good time with this. I am loving this series. So this one for sure is a 5-star. I thought it was much better than the second one. I don't know if I like it more than the first one, because they're very different, but I am loving Elizabeth Hoyt's writing. Like, she gives me all the swoony feels, all the sexual tension, the longing. That's what I need when I read a historical romance, and she's delivering it. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I will be checking back in when I start the next book, which I'm guessing is going to be about Winter. Here's that beautiful step back of these two. We got like the bath scene that ended up happening before, but loved it. 5-star read, probably 3.5 chilies. Fantastic. All right, catch you on the next book. Hey guys, I am back with this vlog. I had started reading The Thief of Shadows last night. This is Winter's book, which we are finally getting to, the Ghost of St. Giles book, which is Winter, which I knew it was Winter. I knew it, even though I bet a lot of people already kind of guessed that, but I was excited I was right. So anyways, at the end of the last book, he had collapsed. He was on the run from the kind of mob that was like that was there for Mickey's execution. And he helps save Mickey, and all of that goes down. And so he kind of drew the attention of the mob, and they were chasing him down. Because the Ghost of St. Giles is like, there's different stories about him that he does, like, he goes after people, he's evil, or these different things, but really he's going after the bad people that prey on the weak and all of that in St. Giles. So, he's kind of like a Batman type of figure, and in this we kind of learn he has a little bit of darkness in him, that like he needs to do this, like he needs to get out there watching women suffer, kids be abandoned. He sees the cruelty of this world, especially living in the St. Giles area, and so this is like a calling for him, and he needs to do it. So he's injured, he's passed out, like bleeding out, or bleeding pretty badly. And our heroine, which is Lady Isabel Beckinghall, she is one of the ladies that she was introduced in the last book too, because she's part of these ladies that are trying to help, build up this home for foundling children. They're like the patronesses that are doing stuff for this. And her and Winter kind of like didn't have the best interactions because he's very cold, very aloof, very like whatever. He doesn't really care about making small talk and, you know, playing up to these ladies, because he just cares about his home, about the kids, and about what he does as Ghost of St. Giles. So she actually comes across his body and has them take him in the carriage. He has his mask on. It's like a Harlequin type of mask situation. So she doesn't know it's Winter. But she takes him home with her, and, you know, they have to undress him and everything. And she's like pretty impressed. He's like a very physically fit, good looking guy. And he has a pretty bad wound on his leg that she has her people sew up. And, you know, he wakes up, like she was going to move his mask, and he wakes up and basically grabs her hand and he's like, no. And I really love these interactions between them, because they were like kind of like flirty, have really good banter going back and forth between them. And she's really intrigued by him as, you know, the Ghost of St. Giles. So she wakes up and he had already left. And so that was kind of like that interaction. And now Winter is like kind of frustrated because he has to be held up like in a bed resting his leg, because it was a pretty bad injury, for like a week, and he really needs to get out there as the Ghost of St. Giles. And now he's dealing with these patronesses that now they think, you know, most of them, there's one lady in particular that's like, he's not good enough to run this home, and he's not good with polite society and all of this. And so the sister of, I think it was Griffin, from the second book, his sister is one of these patronesses, and she kind of comes to his defense. And they basically come to an agreement of having Isabel kind of give him social lessons, giving him etiquette lessons, and helping him so that he can be like a better version for the polite society and mixing with the ton or whatever type of thing. And he says, no, like, I don't want to do this. But then she finds out that that woman is actually secretly like interviewing people to, you know, take his place. So she goes to him and is like, you need to do this or you're going to lose this home. You're going to lose. And he really, like, this is everything to him. These kids are everything. He found another abandoned child that was like with a dog and malnourished, and he brought the child in. And there is this thing, I can't remember what they called it, but it was like the lasses, like something like where there's somebody kidnapping, taking the children, like especially women children. And there is this, because he'll find out, they'll get reports of, you know, a child that needs to be taken in, and then by the time they get there, the child is gone. And so that's kind of like a side plot kind of thing going on here. He finally, like, this one woman had got died, I believe, and so their child was going to be left alone. So he went out as the Ghost of St. Giles really fast to see if he could catch what's going on. And sure enough, he chases down this guy and a youth that were trying to steal the child, and he stops them, but they get away, and he has to like take in the baby or whatever. But like, people knew that what this group is, and that they're after taking these children. So that's another thing. So now him and Isabel are kind of working together. She's trying to teach him how to have like polite conversation, because he really doesn't do that. And she's going to teach him how to dance and all these type of things. So she's going to be giving him lessons. There was they have really good banter. Like, he's very witty and funny and just a dry sense of humor. And I really like him. I love Winter. But at one point he kind of brings up, like, I've never had like experience with that. And she's realizing, oh my God, he's a virgin, you know? And by the way, Isabel is a widow, so she has taken on a couple lovers. They even talk about like how many lovers she's had or whatever. So yeah, so she was a widow and she's taken on a couple lovers after the fact or whatever. But she's very intrigued by Winter, and she's starting to see signs like where she's like, that kind of reminds me of the Ghost of St. Giles. he's wounded after this mobbing, and she finds out about that. And so she's like, I think she's going to put this together pretty fast that he's actually the ghost of St. Giles. But yeah, so then she was getting him like a new suit, and he had to undress in front of her like she wasn't going to leave the room, and he was worried she would see his wound. And then she was like shocked to see that he wasn't like this soft, like usual guy, that she expected, like that he was pretty fit. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on so far. Not too much happening. But I am really enjoying this as usual. I love Elizabeth Hoyt's writing. I love the way she builds like chemistry. Banter is amazing. So enjoying it, but I got to get into work. And I will check in with you guys once I get further in the book, probably over halfway like I usually do. I'm going to try and do better check-ins maybe on this one. I don't know. Maybe I did do good check-ins on last one. I'm doing 2 vlogs at once right now, so I'm mixing up that because I am doing Torment part 1 and part 2 right now, which is a totally different vibe than this, and it's very disturbing. So yeah, 2 different types of vlogs. All right, I got to get into work, so I will check in with you guys later. Hey guys, so I am checking in. I didn't even want to do this. It's like really dark right now. One of my usual ring light is not working, so I had to grab another one. I don't know what's going on with it, but anyways, the lighting's probably bad because sometimes when my house gets really dark already, but it's later at night, and I don't have a ton of lights in the house. Anyway, this is just all behind the scenes BS that I deal with. But anyways, I'll usually have to use 2 of my ring lights to kind of give me some more lighting, especially at night. But I only have the one right now. So I know you guys probably don't even care, but whatever. So it's later at night. I have gotten about 60% through Thief of Shadows. I'm really loving this. I honestly didn't even want to stop reading and do this check-in because I am hooked. I don't even know where I left off last, but basically I think the major thing that I was bringing up was Winter and Isabel. Kind of, she's teaching him how to be a gentleman and all this kind of stuff. He's also trying to investigate who is these snatchers. I think they call them lassie snatchers or whatever, where they're stealing girls. So he, like, honestly, like, I don't have a ton to talk about because not a lot has been happening. It's just been mostly like little moments between them. They have such amazing banter where, they're very flirty with each other, even though he's a very like serious guy. But as things are like progressing between them, like she's pretty much putting it together that Winter is really the ghost of St. Giles. Like, she's not stupid. She's put 2 and 2 together and kind of figured it out. But as they're spending time together, she's waiting for him to like tell her. But of course, Winter is not going to tell her. Like, nobody knows. He had like a mentor. I'm wondering if like his mentor was a previous St. Giles and he's continuing it on. Maybe somebody will continue it on when he's done. I don't know. It kind of seems like that might be the case. Elizabeth White does have these things where it's like little like stories at the very beginning of the chapter. She's had them in each book. And in this one, it's like from the legend of the Harlequin Ghost of St. Giles. And it's telling like a story. So it makes me wonder if there was like always like a St. Giles ghost or something. But anyways, so we're really getting to see, Isabel really be intrigued by Winter, him really into her. They do have this interesting conversation because he does bring up the fact that, he has no experience. And he basically said, my mission, my life's purpose is to help the people in St. Giles, to help these kids. So I can't have sex with anybody because to me, having sex is being in love with somebody. It has to be that kind of thing. And I can't afford to like put my energy into like a marriage and a partner when I have to focus everything on this home for foundling children. And then obviously we know he has to focus on being the ghost of St. Giles. So, there's lots of little moments there. And she's like, so basically you want to be a saint, like she's like, you can be a husband and still do your good work. Well, he's investigating this thing, and he realizes that this guy's, like sigil or whatever it is, it was, she tells him it's this one guy. I can't remember his name, but it's this one gentleman. And so she's like, oh, you'll probably meet him at this party tonight. All of that kind of stuff. So he wants to investigate this guy. He doesn't know if it's really him or not. And they kind of had a run-in, not really liking each other. This guy is kind of a pompous jerk to him and kind of has been flirting with Isabel. And so he kind of says, oh, well, I'm actually going to be the new manager of that home. Like, that other chick has been interviewing him. And so they kind of come up, like, butt heads a little bit. And he's like, oh, let's see who can be the better gentleman, the better manager for this, and kind of be judged. And so Winter is not going to back down. And he's like, okay. So they basically make an agreement to show up to, like, this opera and show their gentlemanly sides or whatever. But, he actually brings his costume because he wants to interrogate that guy's driver, whatever you call that. And because that was the guy that he chased down that was trying to steal the child. And so he's going to go do that, but Isabel catches, like, the Ghost of St. Giles running around, and she's like, okay, he's never out of St. Giles, but now he's here at the opera where Winter is supposed to be, and Winter is late. And so, she already knew, but now she knows for sure it's him and kind of follows him. And they basically run into each other. They start making out. And that guy shows up and, like, basically throws her off of him. And they start to have, like, a sword fight all throughout the opera, which it just felt very action packed, and you could just see it like in a movie. And, they kind of go at it after each other. The Ghost of St. Giles gets away, and he goes and tries to interrogate that his driver, and he says that it isn't his, like, gentleman. I can't remember this guy's name. Oh, D'Arc or whatever you say. So he's like, oh, it's not D'Arc, but he ends up getting away before he can tell him anything. And so then he goes in late to the opera and all this stuff. So they basically call it a draw, and they're going to do this again at one of D'Arc's, like, balls. So again, that's like another situation where he's going, and he's actually really going to kind of investigate in his house. So, he ends up looking around. He leaves her on the dance floor at this party and goes to go look around as the Ghost of St. Giles. And they end up getting in a room together, kind of hiding. And she's, like, done. She's like, I know this is him. And so she's, like, in a really heated embrace. She, like, gets down on her knees and starts to give him a blowjob. And then they kind of get interrupted, and he ends up leaving. But there's another character, Meg. I think it was Margaret or Meg. She is actually Griffin's sister, and she's been in this book. So, she's going to get a book. But she had fallen in love with this guy, and they were going to, like, basically already having sex together, telling each other they loved each other. And he was like, give me a fortnight to get, like, my everything in order so that I have enough money to marry you. And then at this party, it's revealed that he was murdered, and they think that the Ghost of St. Giles murdered him. So now he had already left the party, so he was investigating. He found, like, an address at D'Arc's place, and he's going to try and find these kids, because he also found out from a girl that he rescued, that she was one of the girls that was taken, and they were basically forcing them to work, like, child labor, and beat them and starve them and stuff to make, like, stockings or whatever. And so he's trying to find these kids that are being held, but he's pretty unsuccessful, and he gets chased down by all the dragoons, and they're, like, hunting him down. And he ends up getting, like, to Isabel like in her coach at one point, and she's so pissed because she's like, you're putting yourself in danger. Why are you doing this? And she's like so upset, and she's like, Winter, like, and she calls him by his name, and he like freezes like, oh, so and she's like, do you think I don't know who I'm kissing? Like, I knew it was you. And he's like thrown off because he didn't know if she gave him the blowjob like as the Ghost of St. Giles or as Winter. And he kind of just pulls her on his lap and starts making out with her. And he's like, she's changed everything for me. Because she knew that he was abstinent and didn't want to do anything because of his duty. But like, they can't stay away from each other. And that she was like actually into Winter, not just like the Ghost of St. Giles. And they get hot and heavy and basically have sex in the carriage. But there's this one line. Let me see if I can find it. Because he goes inside her, and then he has to leave because he's like, I have more I have to get done tonight. And he continues to go look for the kids. And she says his seed still seeped, from inside her uselessly, but then that was nothing new. And that made me kind of pay attention because she has had this little kid staying with her, and she's kind of cold with him, but like scared to get attached with him. And so, there's more to that story. And he actually asks her about it, and she lets him know it was her husband's mistress's child. And so she let him stay with her, and because the mother wasn't like in a good place. And, she doesn't really admit that she has issues with this kid or whatever. But you could tell throughout the book she does. And then when I read that, I knew for sure, like, she has probably had fertility issues. And so it's hard for her probably to get connected to her husband's mistress's kid, And I'm thinking that's the issue, is like she can't have children. So I'm thinking that's kind of what's going on with Isabel. But now he's basically showed back up at her house and can't stay away from her after he's been trying to find these kids all night. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm sure things are going to heat up again. But I'm really loving this couple. They're very sweet. And I can't wait to see where it goes. All right, guys, I will check back in with you once I finish this book, and we'll see if I love it as much as the others. All right, see you in a bit. Hello, guys. I am back with my final check-in because I did finish this last night. It was actually getting really late and I needed to go to bed, but I just kept reading. I just couldn't put it down. I was loving everything about this. I was getting really emotional about it last night. It was just so precious. I love Winter. I love him so much. He's a new favorite hero for me. This is like going to be one of my favorite historical romance couples. Like, I just really love this book. So I'm am I just giving it a 5 stars or a 6 star? I don't know if it's fully 6 star, but I'm feeling it. Like, I'm feeling loving feelings for this. So I have to sit with that for a little bit, but just know that I freaking love this book. So, I think I was like 60% through when I checked in last night. I am kind of out of it. I just got ready for work. Need to head out in a few minutes, but I thought it would be good to do this quick check-in before I head into work while I am kind of fresh with the thoughts on it since I finished it last night. But anyways, he ends up going to her place. They end up, having sex. He like kind of tells her, I want you to show me. And she's like, show you what? He's like, everything. And so I loved this moment. It's like such a great virgin hero because he basically has her teach him how to go down on her properly, how to get her off properly. And he's very open to everything and wanting to learn. And I just loved it. I love it. We love seeing a man that is willing to learn and do better for his woman. So loved that. He is, by the way, all in. Like, he is so in. He's already like in love with her. He knows he's in love with her, but he's like, I can't scare her because she's not ready for that. So like, there's so many amazing quotes I was highlighting from him because he is like ready for her to be his. But she's a little skittish because, she is like thinking, oh, this is just going to be us hooking up or whatever. But she is falling in love with him. She's just scared because we do find out in one scene, they get into it like during one of their, oh, okay. So let me go back a little bit. I'm all over the place. So like she opens to him about Christopher, the little boy that was her husband's mistress's child, right? And she realizes she was pushing him away. And so she opens up her heart to him. And she decides to kind of like be more active in his life. She even takes him to go visit like Winter at the home for foundling children, all of that kind of stuff. And then eventually at one point, the mother is like the kid's mother is in a better place. She has a new protector and she wants to take the kid with her. And so she's really devastated. And she's in like a dark place and she's trying to like just have sex with him instead of like talking out her emotions. And he's like, no, like, we're not doing that. You're not just going to use sex to get over this. And she tries to be kind of feisty, like, well, maybe that's all I want from you. And Winter doesn't take it and he makes her talk it out. And it's such an emotional scene because she ends up like crying and, talking about how she's barren. And, she really breaks down. I think she already told him in an earlier scene that she was barren. I can't remember fully now that I'm mixing up the scenes. But she completely breaks down with him and, he's there for her emotionally and just like, it's very beautiful. So she is barren. She can't have kids. She's had multiple miscarriages. And so when he's like tells her he loves her, she freaks out because she's like, I can't offer you a future. You're still young. I will never be able to provide kids for you. And he's like, I don't care. Like, I can't lose you. You're everything to me. And so she kind of panics and is like, doesn't think this can work, but she can't stay away from him. I mean, they're like in love with each other. And then he actually gets kicked out of like the home for foundling children because of his like slip ups and not doing this competition. And the guy, D'Arc, actually offers, he says, by the way, and he kind of like is hating on Winter because he thinks Winter knows the ghost of St. Giles. Well, he is the ghost of St. Giles and is like not telling him. And he's thinking, the ghost killed his best friend, one of his good close friends. And so now he's kind of like wants to take over this home to be closer and in St. Giles to try and get the ghost. Anyways. So he basically tells him, oh, and I'm also going to offer up to your oldest boy to be like, he can have a good, I think it's like a naval, I can't remember what he called it, but basically he'll be able to get a really good job out on the sea, becoming a naval officer. And like, he's so close to this young boy who you see so many scenes with Winter and this boy. And he really wants more for him. And so he immediately is just like, okay, because he wants this young boy to be able to have a better life. And the boy's like really pissed because he wants to stay to look after that girl that was, they rescued. But he's like, no, I'm ordering you to go. So, and there's also later an emotional moment between them because, he gives like his writing, like little desk thing, like with all his writing tools to the boy to like write to everybody. And it's a really sweet moment because you can tell he loves this kid so much. So now he has like nowhere to go, but he basically tells her, oh, well, I can be a tutor for Christopher. So he basically just moves himself in. So that makes them have this even more intense relationship. And he's really bonding with Christopher and being there for her. And then we're still trying to find out about this group of people or who was in charge of stealing these little girls. So that's kind of all coming to a head at the end of this. They're still hunting down the ghost of St. Giles. So he puts himself in danger every time he goes out. But he is so dedicated to what he's doing. and she doesn't want him to be in danger. So like, I gotta wrap this up because I gotta go to work. I'm talking way too much. So she basically near the end of this, he's like told her he loves her, and there's this amazing scene between them, because let me see if I can find the quote. Okay, so before I get to the quote on like actually this amazing conversation they had, he actually, like, they find out, he goes to like visit the home because he found one of the workshops. He actually did find the girls finally and release them. And then he goes and kind of brings it up to D'Arc, and he had these two friends with him, which he was like kind of suspicious of. So he brought it up, and one of them really wanted to go with him, and it was one of his friends, and he's the guy that actually had given his driver to D'Arc to use at one point, and it was him running this ring. So he was gonna like try and kill the ghost of St. because he kind of knew he was the ghost of St. Giles too. And so it's a whole altercation between them. And then as she finds out, Isabel finds out what's going on, and she goes there, and so she gets held at like knife point, and it's a whole battle, and he kills him and all of that. So and he's basically willing to stop being the ghost of St. Giles. And he ends up being back leading the home, because the other guy that was running the home and the other chick were like, it was falling apart. It was chaos. So he ends up coming back, and he's back to being like the owner and head, in charge of that home. So then they have this conversation where she's like, you'll never have children if you marry me. Because he wants to marry her. And he says, and I love this, I got so emotional multiple times about her, like, inability, her fertility issues, and being barren. It's just very emotional. And he says, oh, my precious Isabel, these are my children, the children of my heart, the children of my life's work. I'm the father to dozens of children, and plan to be the father to hundreds of children in the future. Come, say yes, be my wife, and help me raise my brood. And it's just so adorable. So, I mean, he's like, I do want a child with you. I would love to have a child that's both of us, but I can't live without you. And I am fulfilled taking care of all these kids. This has been my life's work. So let's take care of these kids together and be together. And it's just so beautiful. So, and at the end, which this was something that I was wondering about, because in one of the previous books, I already thought Winter was the ghost of St. Giles. And then at one scene, the ghost of St. Giles was seen, and then Winter was seen in the same area. So I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not, or maybe she did that as a misdirection. And in this, we find out there's multiple ghosts of St. Giles. So he was like, oh, I can hang up my hat, and the other ghost of St. Giles can take care of this. And then we find out who one of the other ones is, who we've been introduced to him in a previous book, but then he's in this again. And that is Godric St. John. And he was like a friend to, I think, Griffin. And he just lost his wife. She was like everything to him. And now he is doing the other ghost of St. Giles. And then he ends up at the very end of this, I think it's Lord Griffin shows up to his house and is like found his extra ghost mask thing. And he's like, yeah, so I have a proposition for you. So that's kind of where we're leaving off. I'm guessing we're going to go to Lord Godric's book next. So anyways, I love this so much. I adored it. I love Elizabeth Hoyt. This series is blowing me away. It just keeps getting better and better. I got to think on my review. Do I want to give this a 6 stars or just a 5 stars? I'm leaning towards maybe a 6, because I just was like getting all teary-eyed last night reading these scenes. Anyways, I got to get going. I'm going to be late for work. So I will see you guys on the next Elizabeth Hoyt vlog, where I'll be doing the next 2 books in the series. Thank you so much for watching. Leave me a comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.